are listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. Thank you for joining us. Our hope is for you to be encouraged and to connect with God during this message. If you'd like to know more about Thornapple Valley Church, visit tvcweb.com.
Well, good morning, everybody. So good to see you all. Glad you're here. You're looking good. So why don't you turn to the person next to you and say, "You look so nice today." Come on, just say it to him. You look so nice. Even if you have to do it sarcastically, just do it, all right? Just say, "You look so nice today." Glad you're here. So let's start this out. Let's start this talk out real easy, all right? We'll play a little game of Would You Rather. And this is real simple. Just respond when I ask you to, okay? So this is brain dead stuff. So would you rather, for example, eat a hamburger, or would you rather eat fried chicken? So I'll just go back out. Whoops, I got to learn this. Hang on. How many of you would rather eat a hamburger? Okay, these are the people of God right here. How many of you would rather have fried chicken? Lift your hand. Okay. How many of you are in the third category? You would like both at the same time. Would you lift your? Wow, that's a lot of gluttons in the room. All right, let's move on. And we'll see another one. Here's one. Cake. Would you rather have cake? This is chocolate, but any kind of cake. Or would you rather have pie? So how many of you would rather have cake? Would you lift your hand up? Okay. It's cake people. How many of you would rather have pie? And I'm not even going to ask about both because that'd be all of us, right? All right. Here's another one. If you're going to rest, would you rather lay on a couch or would you rather lay on a recliner? So how many of you are couch people? Okay, quite a few are couch potatoes. And how many of you are recliner people? All right, more are recliner potatoes, but all the same. So if you want to just zone out, you just want to do something that you don't have to think, would you rather use Netflix or would you rather use YouTube? How many would say Netflix is your choice? Okay, how many of you would say YouTube is your choice? Okay, a little more for Netflix. It's really a very interesting, the whole idea here is very interesting. You probably noticed that all these things have a common denominator. Can anybody care to guess? You're like, I don't know. It's comfort stuff, right? Comfort, food, things that entertain you, things that feel good when you lay down, all of them. And did you notice, and I was very aware of this because I asked this question, there was no hesitation. You know how quickly you answered? You were like, I know, baby. It's fried chicken. I know, it's Netflix. I know. We don't want to own this, I think, but we're very refined in our taste when it comes to comfort. In fact, I think you could make the argument that we're sort of on a continual quest for comfort. And I want to be clear, I think it's human nature, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it. Except, you probably knew that was coming. Except if you notice that sometimes those things that bring us comfort that we enjoy so much can actually act as our enemy. Anybody know what I'm talking about? The very thing that brings you comfort that you so love, the fried chicken or whatever, that can act as an enemy in another area of your life. It's ironic, really, but as much as we love them, they keep us sometimes from growing, from becoming who we should be. They keep us. The fact is, very often, and you know this, I'm not telling you anything you don't, denying comfort is often the price you have to pay to get to where you know you want to be as a person. You have to deny comfort. You have to deny the couch or the cake or the Netflix or whatever it is to become who you want to be. Now, we all know that's true. Everybody knows that's true. But it's so funny because we live our lives sort of in this perpetual pursuit of comfort. And when we hit a little discomfort, our reflexive response is to move away from it. You sit down in a chair and you go, this has got like a bump in it. And so we're looking for one that feels more, say it, comfortable. We're on this quest. And I think, again, it's not unreasonable to say that we pretty much hate discomfort. So very often, even though we know we should step into discomfort to accomplish, to become who we know we should be or what we want to do, we back away from it and we go to the feel-good place. We pull out the Cheetos or we go to the recliner or we do whatever because we don't want to experience that discomfort. And then we miss what we could be, what we could achieve, what we could do, what we could learn, all of that stuff. Often, this is ironic, but often because of such a small amount of discomfort too. I love how author James Clear says this. He kind of breaks it down in a simple way. It's a quote from a book of his. He says, are you willing to be uncomfortable for basically 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, he says. Exercising is easier once you've started the workout. Conversation's easier once you're already talking. Writing's easier once you're in the middle of it. But many, he says, rewards in life will elude you if you're not willing to be a little, say that next word out loud, uncomfortable at first. I mean, this is absolutely true, and everybody knows it. And this isn't just, folks, this isn't just current wisdom. This is thousands of years old. The writer of Proverbs said it this way. He said, a little sleep, a little slumber, a little folding of the hands to rest, comfort stuff, and poverty will come on you like a thief, and scarcity like an armed man. I like how the Message paraphrase says it. It kind of opens it up a little more. It says, a nap here, a nap there, day off here, just another day off there. Sit back, take it easy. You know what comes next? Just this. You can look forward to a dirt poor life with poverty as your permanent house guest. And I hope you understand, he's not just talking about economic poverty. Really what he's talking about is soul poverty. When you give to yourself to comfort continually, when that is your pursuit in life, what happens is eventually it becomes all there is to you, and you miss all these, you never become who you could be, which in my opinion, soul poverty is way worse than economic poverty, than being money poor. Of course, that quote that we read from Clear, I mean, is brilliant. When you break it down and just say, can you go through discomfort for just 5 minutes? It's brilliant. But let's just be honest at the same time. Some of the stuff we face in life, if we're going to step into the discomfort and grow and become, it's a little longer than 5 minutes, because growing, becoming who you can be, is a long distance thing. Sometimes you have to stay in discomfort for quite a while by choice. It's like somebody hurts you, and they just do it in such a cavalier way, and it's like they wound you, and you even try to communicate that you're hurt by what they did, and they're just like, well, they don't really care, and you're angry, and you're wounded, and you're saddened by the whole thing, and they're just acting like life is normal and everything's fine, and everything in you is so frustrated, but everything in you also knows that what you're supposed to do is forgive them, right? Okay, 3 people said yeah. Okay, you're supposed to forgive them, you're supposed to love them, you're supposed to treat them with respect. Everything in you knows that, but it's so hard. And it's not just 5 minutes. It can last for a long time. When somebody offends you and hurts you, that wound can last for a long time, and you have to step into that discomfort and say, I'm going to do the right thing. It's like when you feel dark or discouraged or depressed, we're going to be talking about in weeks to come. And that's not getting through, that's not a 5-minute thing. It's likely not a 5-day thing. It may not even be a 5-month thing. It is a long distance thing. So often what we face feels like it's nothing short of like a giant. It's like this huge crushing thing that's coming down on us. And we feel like we can't escape it, we can't beat it, we can't get away from it. It's just like nonstop discomfort. Well, that's exactly what God's people, the Israelites, felt when, as a nation, they'd been hundreds of years in slavery, in the bondage of slavery, and then they got free from that, but then they go into the wilderness with Moses, and things go south there, and so for 40 years they're wandering around in the wilderness, but finally they get to the edge of the promised land, the land God said that he would take them to, which he described as a land of, does anybody know? Milk and honey. And so they get to the edge. Many of you know the story, obviously. And Moses, who's leading them at that time, he basically says, okay, we need a group of guys, and you're going to go out on a reconnaissance mission. You're going to look at the land that we're supposed to go into. And so he sends this recon team out. But when they come back, those of you who know the story, that the reviews were a bit mixed. I want you just to look at this. And again, I'm reading out of the Message paraphrase because I just think it's so good. So the guys that came back from the recon group came back. They told the story of the trip. We went to the land to which you sent us, and it does flow with milk and honey. They brought some of the produce back from the land. They said, just look at this fruit. And then I underlined the next 4 words because I think they're so powerful. The only thing is, you ever find yourself saying that? The only thing is, they said, that the people who live there are fierce, and their cities are huge and well fortified. Worse yet, we saw descendants of the giant Anak. Amalekites, they said, now they just start to describe the whole land. They're spread out in the Negev. Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites hold the hill country, and the Canaanites are established along the Mediterranean Sea and along the Jordan. In other words, everywhere we went, there were these ferocious people. And they're just saying, this is terrible. And then one of the guys who was part of the team, Caleb, interrupted and called for silence before Moses, and he just said very simply, let's go up and take the land. Now we can do it. But the others are like, we can't attack those people. They're way stronger than we are. And so what they did was they spread scary rumors among the people of Israel, and they said, we scouted the land from one end to the other, and it's a land that swallows people whole. Everybody we saw was huge. Well, we even saw the Nephilim giants, the Anak giants, come from the Nephilim. And they said alongside them, we felt like grasshoppers, and they looked down on us as if we were grasshoppers. In other words, this all sounded really good in the moment, but real life, these guys are giants. Of course, none of us have really faced, we haven't been in situations maybe of that magnitude, but it's really still the same thing, no matter what the level of giant you're facing is in life, because the truth is this is where real life happens. You dream, I can see myself. I'm going to get fit, six-pack, abs, and I'm going to have muscles, or I'm going to build this business, or I'm going to do this thing. It all sounds so good when you dream it. Come on, is that true? And then you see the giants. Now listen to me, because I don't want you to miss this. Every promised land has giants. Every promised land has giants. No matter what dream you have, no matter what you're going into, you will think about how wonderful it is, but when you start taking steps to go into the land to check it out, you will see there are giants. And you have to decide who you're going to be like. Are you going to be like Caleb? Are you going to say, yeah, they're there, but that doesn't matter. We can do this. Or are you going to run back to comfort? Are you going to head back to the couch and the Netflix because it just feels too overwhelming and I just can't do it and I just can't handle it? You have to make a choice. Now, you may disagree with me on this, and I'm okay with that. But I absolutely believe that life for us is not just about destiny, about fate. You just have to accept whatever happens. I think when you face giants, you have a choice. You have a choice to move away from the discomfort back to comfort. You have a choice to turn into it and face the giants. See, Caleb was just like us. He was human. There's no question in my mind. He was afraid and he was discouraged and he had all these emotions. But what he did that was different was he made the decision to choose a different path. He faced the giants. So this week, we're starting just a short little 3-part series on how we address a few of the bigger giants that we face in life. And they look different than the Anak variety that Caleb and the other guys saw. But that's what they are. They're giants. You are facing giants in your life right now. Lots of different things. You're afraid the car's not working well and it could break down, and then how am I going to get to work? And you have all this stuff going on inside you. You're discouraged. You're wounded by somebody. You got all kinds of things. Every promised land has giants in it. And they're the things that send us running back to the couch and comfort food or alcohol or social media distraction or whatever it is, our drug of choice. And my hope in this series is simply to challenge us, starting with me, because I will be honest with you throughout this. I wrestle with giants like everybody else, and it's so easy for me to go, I'm just going over here, and I'm just going to get in the recliner or on the couch or whatever it is, or I'm just going to eat this food to make myself feel better. And my challenge for all of us is to first acknowledge the existence of the giants, but even more than to face them. So we'll talk about over the weeks 3 different giants that we face, and all of us face these. This week's, I think, maybe is one of the hardest ones we all face. It is what I would describe as the giant of fear. Fear. We're afraid of stuff. Now, you need to understand, when I talk about this guy, I'm not really referring to just massive fears, like fear of getting a deadly disease or fear of being poverty-stricken or those type of huge fears. I'm talking about all kinds of fears, from those all the way down to those little things that you face in life. What I would describe as like even times when I'm just a little angsty today. I don't even know why. I'm worried that this might not come out. I'm concerned about this. Because if you really break those down from the big ones all the way down to the little concerns, they all have their roots in fear. We're afraid that something that we think might happen will happen. We have angst over this stuff. And what I want you to understand is that even these little concerns, they have a way of turning into larger concerns. Anybody ever notice that? You start worrying about it, and it starts getting bigger in your head and then bigger, and pretty soon it becomes a giant in your life. And this is what you need to understand about giants. Don't miss this. Giants, when they're unaddressed, in other words, when you don't deal with them, giants unaddressed turn into dictators. See, this is not just you feel a little fear. This is something that comes in your life and it hits you and affects you in such a way that it begins to tell you where you can go, where you can't go. You realize, don't you, there are people who don't go certain places, not because they couldn't, but because they're afraid of what might happen. Who you can talk to, who you can't talk to, what you can do, what you can't do. I would love to do that, but I'm just too nervous. Fears, the giant of fear, when it is unaddressed, when we don't face into it and acknowledge it and then begin to reject it, it turns into a dictator in our lives. Left alone, it will, number one, run your life, and number two, ruin your life. And I'm not speaking on this subject that really, like a guy who has it all figured out and has all the answers and doing perfectly on this. I'm just telling you, and you already know this, that this is true. They want to mess our lives up, these fears that come after us. And here's what we all know. They're everywhere you turn. I mean, it's really fear of not having enough, fear of being rejected by somebody, fear of not being valued, fear of not being loved, of losing respect, of getting sick. I could go on and on. It's like this endless list. And sometimes they seem like logical fears. Sometimes they seem obvious. Sometimes they're just these small little things where it comes up in our head. That would be really good. The only thing is, remember those words? The only thing is, or those other two horrible words. But what if? What if? And these things eat away at us, and they can seem subtle, but they're strong. But either way, there they are, little dictators in our lives that want to rule who we are. And the key isn't so much what the fear is. It doesn't matter what you have concern or worry or fear over. The key is not that. The key is, what do you do with it? From big fears all the way down to little concerns, they have to be addressed or they become dictators in our lives. Now, before I give you some thoughts, and I will, just simple thoughts really, on how we face the giants of fears that come at us, I just want to be clear on this, that you and I will be challenged by fears all our lives. I just thought I'd give you some good news before I talk about everything else. This is just a reality of living in a broken world. This is a reality of living in the world that we live in, that everywhere you turn, you will come into the next promised land that is in front of you, and it will have fears, giants of fear in it, and you will have to face those or you will run from them because you don't want the discomfort. Everywhere you go. And I'm not trying to be a downer on this. I'm just saying we live in a war zone with enemies who are giants. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's crazy because I think sometimes people are so naive. They think, if I can just overcome this one, I'll never be afraid again. You're dumb if you think that. That probably wasn't the right way to say it. I should say that more gently, shouldn't I? I mean, come on. Anybody ever experienced this? You have a fear and it's like, I want this to happen, but I don't want to, I'm afraid. And you face into it and you challenge it and you do whatever it takes and you conquer that fear and you win and you get to the top of the mountain. And it's amazing and it's awesome and it's so wonderful and enjoyable. You have beaten that fear and it's so great. And you get to the top of the mountain and you go, never again will fear come against me and bother me in this way. Do you know what every person who has ever achieved anything amazing will tell you? Is that when you get to the top of the mountain, you're like, yes, I want it. I beat that fear. As soon as you beat that fear, the fear that comes up next is that you can lose what you just won. It's insane, but it's true. You finally get it, and then you're afraid you're going to lose it. We will always face these things. But here's my word of encouragement. is that if you will at least acknowledge this as a fear, this is what many people do, is they have a fear of something, they just ignore it, they try to act, it's just, they put blinders on, it's not there, I don't even think about it, if you will face into it and say, I'm afraid of this. I have to be honest and admit, if you can understand what a massive step that is. If you do that, it changes everything. There is no sin, there is no failure in acknowledging that you feel fear. That is, listen to me, this is tweetable, that is, acknowledging fear is the first step to courage. Acknowledging that you're afraid is the first step to courage in facing into it and dealing with it. Because if you won't own that it's there, you'll never deal with it. For some of us, the step that you needed, you're hearing about right now. This is why you're listening to this talk, or you're watching online, or you're walking down the road listening to a podcast or on a bike ride. You needed to hear this. You have to face into that. See, here's the deal. If you don't own that it's a fear, you can never deal with it. Come on, is that true? Every 12-step group that there ever was is built around this simple principle. Step one is you have to own this is an issue. I'm afraid of this. You have to own it. What we got today is nothing more than a big AA meeting. Welcome, everyone. Can I start the meeting? Hi, my name is Jeff. This is more of an AA meeting than I realized. Let me start again and just. Hi, my name is Jeff, and I'm afraid of your disapproval. Let's call the meeting to order. And you may say that sounds silly. No, it's not. You know, it's actually very courageous for me to say that. That sounds obnoxious, doesn't it? But it's the truth, and I can never face into that fear if I don't first acknowledge that that is a reality in my life. This is such a healthy place to come to. But then once you own that I am afraid, I do have fear in this area, I do feel it, then you have to take the second critical step, which Caleb did. You acknowledge it, you face the giants, but then you reject it. One thing I know I will always have to face fear, but I don't have to live under fear. I don't have to live with it dominating my life. I may have to wrestle it down countless times. I may be hit by these giants time and again and have to face into them and say no and fight them down. I may have to do that, but I do not have to live with it over me. I do not have to be ruled by this thing. And I'll tell you why I can speak this with such authority and conviction is very simply because this is what Jesus tells us. And Jesus will never call us to do that that we can't do with his help. And over and over again, he talks this way. I love this one. I just brought this one out. Luke 12:4, Jesus says, I tell you, my friends, do not what? Do not be afraid. Now, this is an interesting thing because a lot of us know this. Jesus said these kind of words over and over and over in many different ways. Don't be afraid, fear not, all that stuff. And many of us we kind of think of it like, okay, Jesus tells us I don't have to be afraid. So all I have to do is I just go, Jesus, take the wheel. And then Jesus reaches down and takes the wheel. And then you open your mouth and he drops a pill in your mouth and you swallow it and you go to Never, Never Land and float through the rest of life. Now, there are pills like that. But Jesus isn't dropping them into your mouth, all right? That's a dealer that's doing that, and they don't work. Now, this is an interesting thing because Jesus doesn't say, relax, I won't let you be afraid. He says, I tell you, don't be afraid. Or in the words we think so often that he said it, fear not. Do you know what he's actually saying? He's saying, you have a part in this. This is not you just saying, Jesus, take this fear away. This is you taking a step, acknowledging now that you've got to this place, you acknowledge that you got the fear, but now you have to turn into it and say, no, like Caleb, no. I'm not going to let this thing dominate my life. Now That's easy for me to stand up and hear and preach, and I understand, fear hits all of us. I could take 2 steps off this platform after it's done. I'm up here ranting and raving and telling you, you should not be afraid, blah, 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 and I'll get down. I can't even get halfway back and something will hit me, and it's like fear happens so fast it'll make your head spin. It happens to every one of us, and it happens on a regular basis. The question is not, does it happen? The question is, what do we do? And Jesus tells us that we have responsibility in this. Our job is to fear not. So I'm going to give you just some simple thoughts, and you do with this what you want to. Mostly, I hope you'll process it. I hope you'll think about it, because you do get hit by fear. Maybe the first thing for you is my first point, which I already talked about, but I just can't get away from. I have to reiterate it, and that is that you have to own it. You have to own it. Don't act like it's not there. If you don't admit that this is an issue, you never deal with it. It's okay to feel scared. But once you own it, then, and because I'm not going to dwell on this because I've talked about it, but then you have to start taking steps. You consciously reject this thing. And there are a number of ways you can do this. I'm only going to give you just 2 tactics here. There are plenty of others, but the consciousness that you have is that you're saying, I will not let this dominate my life. This is where I think a lot of us miss it, is that we might even get to the place where you say, yeah, I'm scared to death of that. I'm just scared to death of that. We own that, but then we don't take the next step and become strategic in how we face it. We just kind of act like, I'm scared of it. I don't have a choice. But actually, you do. Let me give you my 2 thoughts. First, you own it. Secondly, you change the track. Now, let me just explain why this is so important. And I really hope that you see, here's what I've learned, all right? Something that's helped me is to remember that fear, basically, before it's anything else, is a temptation. It's a temptation. Now listen, I know some of you are going, well, I never feel fearful when I'm tempted to have the 2nd or 3rd piece of cake. That's not, but fear is a temptation. It is a temptation to not trust in the bigness of God. That was... Okay, that was deep, and you're missing it, all right? There's like one person back here that got it. Fear is the temptation to not trust in the bigness of God. It's a temptation. It's a temptation to focus on that which you really don't know about instead of that which you do, that God is bigger no matter what it is that you face, no matter what it is that you... It's a temptation to not trust him. And here's how the temptation works. It's really simple. It twists the truth into a lie, and then it just blows it up until it gets it right in front of your face, and then this is all you see. This is what you see. You see this. And maybe it's not that this is there every second of your life, but every time that particular thing that you fear or that worry about or that concern, when that comes up, it's like right there in front of your face. And you, everywhere you turn your head, that's where it is. That is all you see. And this is exactly how it works. It's a warped truth, but what it does more than anything is it gets you to focus on it. Sometimes that's all you can think about is just like, and if this happens, and if that happens, and so what you're doing is you're totally focused on that. And I remember something Brian quoted a couple weeks ago, which I thought it's such a brilliant statement. I heard it years ago, but basically it is, if your enemy can't destroy you, he will distract you. And what that means is he'll get you so focused on this that you can't see anything else. You understand that's what fear does, right? It gets you so focused on that thing, that fear, that you cannot see anything else. And so the idea behind it, you see, that the enemy just wants to get you thinking about it, dwelling on it, just going round and round and round, because once that's done, he loves to have you argue with him and think about it. And, well, if I could fix it, I'll do this and I'll do, as long as this is in front of you, you can't see anything else. And this is where I think sometimes we make the biggest mistake is that what we need to do is we need to get this thing out from in front of our face. We need to, if you will, refocus or change the track. Just change the direction you're going in. Refocus. Now, I want to be clear. This is not denial of the existence of the fear. This is simply saying, I'm focusing on the answer rather than the problem. Again, very simple, but so important. I'm focusing on the answer here rather than the problem. And this is exactly what Scripture teaches us to do. This is so profound. Look at this in Philippians chapter 4, verse 8. This is what it says. It says, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true. And then it begins a litany of different kinds of things. Whatever is noble, if it's right, if it's pure, lovely, admirable, if it's excellent or praiseworthy, what are we supposed to do with those things? We're supposed to focus on them. Think about them. Instead of just focusing on the problem and I think about how this is not going well and what if she says this and I'll lose her friendship or what if this happens or what? No. Just focus on those things which are excellent and praiseworthy and lovely and worthy. This isn't, again, it's not denial. It's just choosing the track you listen to. Instead of letting it burn this deeper and deeper trench in your neural pathways, you're saying, no, I'm going to change what I'm thinking about. Now, it's much easier for me to rant and rave and preach about than it is to actually do, but it is true. It's just like when you get a song in your head. Come on, you know what I'm talking about. You get an earworm, one of those songs, and you can't get it out of your head, and you're like, ah! The way you replace it is with another song. It's so funny. I guess I had a real-life illustration of how this actually works because I was working on this talk. It's probably about 3 weeks ago. And I'd heard this song, and I actually liked the tune, but I didn't know the words very well, and it was going through my head. And I was thinking about how this gets, earworms, how it gets in your head and everything. And I thought, what are the words to that song? This is the problem with being in the age of technology, is that I'm working on a talk, trying to be spiritual, and I just went, I better check. Well, in 2 seconds, I had YouTube up, and I'm reading the words to that song. Now, this is what happened to me. This is so funny, because I don't even know what happened from that point on. Time got lost. You ever had that happen to you? And 10, 15, 20 minutes later, I think it was close to 20 minutes later, I suddenly realized I'm looking at TikTok dance videos to that song. I was like, what just happened? Anybody ever had that happen? It's like, there's a hole in time. It's just gone. It's lost. And that is the power of focus. And you actually have the ability to refocus if you choose to. But it has to be a conscious choice. You change the track. And if you don't, understand that the giant wins. Instead of having a mental conversation with it, go to a different place. Maybe you have to say, this fear is right up in your head, and you have to just say, you have to go to a place where, what Scripture tells me? It tells me that God in me is greater than he that's in the world. It tells me that God will provide all my needs, or whatever it is to respond to that thing. Maybe you need to just go back and think about and dwell on a time when you feared something that could happen and it didn't happen. And remind yourself that what ifs don't really mean anything. They're simply what ifs. But whatever you do, you have to change the track. This is so powerful. So you own it. You change the track, and then the last thought, and I'm going to close with this real simple, is that guys, I don't know any other way to say this than we need disciplined time with God in our lives. See, here's the thing. Whatever is here is what you see. And I know so many people, they say, I know I should spend time with God, but my life is so full right now. Work has got so much going on and everything. You need time with God on a regular basis, because when you see him, I've said this before, I'll say it again. When you see God, it brings context to everything else in life. When you see God, it brings context to the fears, the giants, the things that we face. And of course, this is exactly what Scripture tells us. Look at this again, Philippians chapter 4, the prior 2 verses to what we just read. It starts out by saying, don't worry about anything. Thank you very much, writer of Philippians, whoever you are, that you're telling us not to worry about things. You realize how hard that is? How are we supposed to do that? He actually tells us, instead, what? Pray. Pray. Talk to God. Pray about everything. Tell God what you need, and then thank him for all he's done. In other words, you put your focus on God. Because when you look at God, it changes the context of everything. You realize this thing that seems so big in light of God is not a big deal. Some of you heard me talk about it. There was a bully when I was in school, and I was so scared of this kid that because he was so brutal and mean, and I would cross the street whenever I saw him until the day came when I saw him. I had the same feelings, but suddenly I was aware of the fact that something was different. I was walking next to my dad. Put everything in context. My dad could kick his butt. And whatever fear you're facing, your father can kick its butt. Well, that was deep too, wasn't it? I guess I can't, there's no way I think I can say it any better than say this. You see what you magnify. You see what you magnify. So whatever you choose to look at, you consciously can change the track of your head. Whatever you choose to look at, when you spend time with God, you see God. That's probably why the psalmist said, "Oh, magnify the Lord with me. Let's exalt his name together." Why? Because you see him, and he gives context to everything. Own it. Change the track. And discipline time with God. What's God saying to you? And now we're going to just spend a little bit more time in worship, and this is a wonderful opportunity for you to take that fear and say, "God, help me take the next step," whether it's owning it, whether it's changing the track, whether it's saying, "I will start spending daily time with you." Let me pray, and then we'll do that together. We love you, God. Thanks for your help, for helping us do this. In Jesus' name, amen.
Thank you for listening to the Thornapple Valley Church podcast. If you found this message encouraging, we invite you to share it. For more information, visit tvcweb.com.